Hi, good evening. Welcome to a slightly earlier than normal Barmy Army Isolation podcast. We've reached number 20. And I think Fiona, who's joining us this evening, deserves a long service medal because we've worked out, Fiona, you've actually done half of these with us. So thank you very much for joining us this evening. We're also joined by Sue. Fiona, I'm going to come back to you in a moment. Sue, I'll come to you first of all. How's your week been and how are you doing?
My week has been like every other week since the beginning of April, and I've been doing exactly what I've been always doing. Company that I work for has remained open the whole time during lockdown. It's work as usual. We made minor modifications to make sure everybody was safe, but we're in an industry where we could not close. We supply the lights and the audio equipment for the emergency services vehicle. We immediately had customers on saying, are you going to stay open? Are you going to stay open? And we need you to stay open. We've done that. So there's no change. My life has been my only change has been not going to see my family, but I bubbled up with my daughter at the end of June. I think that's actually more of a a synonym for what my waistline's done over lockdown than anything else. But yeah, we bubbled up. I bubbled up with her so I could see my grandchildren. Still haven't seen my sons. But other than that, it's just life as usual.
And keeping well. Fiona, you're doing okay as well?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Been down to the Megastore to get the new kit, so you know.
I think I might be having. Right. Sorry, I thought I froze for a minute there. I know I've been having I've had connectivity issues most of the last couple of days, and I was frightened for a moment that we'd had a false alarm. Fiona, you're keeping well, is that right?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Got the new kit, so you know. Always happy.
Last week, in the last week or so, anything exciting happened? Anything that you've been counting down the days to? No.
Oh, yeah, yesterday 9 a.m. Only thing that mattered, getting on the Man United website, getting that new kit, seeing the girls in the photos as well. Always great to see that join media. So,
yeah, I think it's one of those things we now expect that as it's their third release, I suppose that we've had the third kit release, I suppose that we've had whilst the girls have been in existence. We expect them to be there every time to have been some pictures, and I know certainly in the Megastore they've got a montage of players, and there are some of the girls there as well. So that's always good to see. Good evening, John. Good evening, Ian, and anybody else who might be watching. Yeah, I know we're slightly early this evening, but the men are playing at 8 o'clock. So this is in case anybody wants to come and enjoy this. Go and grab a drink and then go and sit down to watch the men. So we're going to jump into this one tonight. The thought about this came up actually in the social. We were discussing it slightly, Fiona, was because last Sunday there was a lot of talk around, particularly Rachel Daly. That was the name that got mentioned, but it then became more of a thinking around, should we be looking at players who may be coming out from the States, want short-term deals to get game time ahead of the Olympics or just to keep themselves fit, because obviously their season's been all messed about. So should we be going for some of these players, or is it actually going to do a detriment to our players that we currently have and long-term development? So lots of points in that one. Good evening, Torrin. Sue, what were your thoughts? Because on Twitter, you were quite pro getting Rachel Daly in if we could. Is that right?
Absolutely. Not just Rachel Daly, but anybody of a significant quality. And I probably should just throw in here my apologies for not being on the social for a number of weeks. But I have been, like I said, taking the opportunity to see my grandkids as much as I've been able to. So I've been down there at least 3 times, and they've been here once. So yeah, so I don't know what was said on Sunday, but absolutely, I was very pro Rachel Daly on Twitter. That is partly because I think she as an individual would add an enormous amount to our squad. But in terms of short-term contracts, again, my answer is the same. I think it's a categorical yes. I would do it. And I know it's not the same, but similarly, in the sense of the notion of the idea, is that should we, for example, always say that a manager or a coach of a women's team should be a woman? The answer is no. Should be a man if he's the best person for the job. You know, should we, for example, only be signing British, English, UK's, you know, whatever nationality players, you know, because that's the way we want to do it? The answer again should be no. It should be the best people. So I'm very much, and this isn't just about football, this is just my general opinion, that I think that if there is an availability of a player that you know will improve the quality of your squad right there and then, you should do it.
Okay.
You know, I don't really think that the length of the contract, you know, should be a deciding factor. I mean, you know.
I'm just going to stop you there a moment.
Yeah.
We've got John, who says, stick with who we've got. Nat, on the contrary, says, let's go. So immediately within people watching, we've got that difference. Okay. Sue's very much saying there, Fiona, yeah, if they're going to add quality, no matter how short or long it might be, let's get them in. What are your thoughts, Fiona?
I think it depends on the reason for signing the player. So if you're signing that player because our squad is small and we need more players, signing somebody on a 6-month contract in a plaster over a wound, you're going to have to deal with in January. And we think that Casey doesn't particularly like the January transfer window. I think it's different if it was a January to June contract, because then that's the summer transfer window and that's kind of easier to get business done. If your squad is good enough, like depth-wise and that kind of thing, but you can bring across the MVP from their cup that they had, or like Carly Lloyd, like City had Carly Lloyd, or and Alex Morgan, you know, these star players, then I can see a positive of bringing them in. They've got experience that a lot of our players haven't got. They've played in World Cup finals, or they've played in big tournaments or whatever. They had leaderships. So like we saw Daly was the captain of her team, and you know, I think, and was like doing like huddles and, you know, coaching the players in the squad, so they could add that and add that experience, and obviously they would add that quality as well. But then you've also got to balance it. If they're coming in and filling that position for 6 months, and it's taking, I don't know, Hanson's position, or I don't know, Hayley Ladd's position, or whatever position they play in, that person's got to sit on the bench. And if they're a young developing player, what are you doing in the meantime? Where are they going to get their game time? Are you just going to let them play in the cup? So I think it's that balance. I think it's different if you look at some of like the top 3 teams where they've got a lot of games, they're fighting for Champions League, getting further through. I think at the moment our squad is good enough to get 4th again. So yeah, I think there's a fine balance that Casey needs to like deal with. Not jealous of having to deal with that.
No, not well. That's the joy of being a manager. You get to make those decisions. Sue, I can see you shaking your head there. So I think also, just to come in a moment, something that you made a point about there, Fiona, in terms of, you named a couple of people. I can imagine that there would be some people in the merchandising department going, yeah, do it. Some of those names, I'm not saying they'd even be realistic for us, but they know they'd shift some shirts on those players. So you never know if there's any other pressure that might get put on Casey. Sue, you were shaking your head. You're very much
not because I'm not because I'm particularly disagreeing. I mean, some of it is, you know, a nod of the head, because I'm not saying that you do it, you know, just blasé or, you know, across the board. I think it has to be the right player for sure, and it has to be somebody who you think is going to add something to your squad. I get the point about, you know, you bring them in and they're going to leave in January or whatever. But first of all, you know, some of the players that you might get on a short-term loan now might actually be available later. You might be giving them an opportunity at your club, not only where they're bringing something to your club, but they are actually also seeing how the club works, so that when they become available, okay, it might not be in January, but it might be this time next year on a permanent basis. They've enjoyed what they've seen, they've enjoyed being a member, and they'd be saying to Casey, look, I've got to go in January for 6 months, but I tell you what, I'll come back next August and you'll have me for 2-3 years. So two-way thing. They will get they will get to learn our environment, which then may kick on for a future signing, you know, a little bit. And I think the good thing to some extent, like a short-term contract, is a bit like a loan. You know, you liken this to, say, the men's game, where Igalo came in because Rashford was injured, and, you know, we've got to see him. Are we now going to keep him because we think you've impressed? Whereas if the person doesn't impress, after a few months you say, bye-bye, don't want, you know, to see you anymore. But I completely agree with the scenario that, you know, you get in the right people who are going to bring experience. And yes, they might take the place of other team members, you know, squad members in a starting 11, but you've got to weigh up what they will bring in training, in the dressing room, like Fiona says, and also what competition then they'll bring. It's not to say that just because you sign a top class player, they're going to walk into the team. Fiona mentioned, say, Hansen. So say if it was Daly and you said, okay, we're going to play you on the right wing, then maybe that makes Kirsty kick on and think, just a minute, not having her walking in and taking my position. And that competition then gives her the impetus to improve. So I think you get the quality player in training, in the dressing room, adding competition to the positions, people fighting for their places, and ultimately creating a relationship with a player who may become available in the future.
I'll come back to, so we've mentioned Hansen, and actually I want to come on to that sort of second half of this maybe, because she's one of those that her name has come up in terms of could be under threat if this happens. Sue, I've put it up. Nat agrees. She says that Daly's out of contract at the end of this year. So that idea that you mentioned about if we get somebody now, they might then go back to the States, but actually there may be some commitment after that. That would be a possibility. Fiona, John.
Can I just say something there? You know, with Jodie Taylor, who has gone to Lyon, obviously the OL group now own Rain. I think I read something, I could be wrong, that Jodie Taylor herself is actually out of contract at the end of the year. So will she go back to Rain on a new contract? Will she stay at Lyon on a contract beyond the end of the year? Or will she go somewhere else? For her, moving to Lyon for these 6 months or 4 months, 5 months, whatever, is absolutely ideal. They get to see her. They get to use her because they've got Champions League, etc. And then it's like, well, what do we do at the end of the time? She's opened up. That move to Lyon for her is an absolute no-brainer. It just opens up all types of opportunities.
For her, it's a perfect deal. I'm thinking more in terms of the club, because obviously, as a United fan, I'm thinking of the impact for us. And that's one of the things that we've got players that have come in. We've had players obviously that have left the squad, and there is a belief, I think, within some of our fans that we need more. Maybe the squad's looking a bit thin. Fiona, one of the things we mentioned was some of these players would be coming over and then have to quarantine. They'd then have to stay 2 weeks without being able to train with the team at a point when the team is already training full team 11 on 11 from what we can gather. They're in phase 3 that we've heard about. So their introduction to the team would be delayed. and is then very brief. Jodie Taylor, yes, as Sue's mentioned, she's signed with Leon till the end of December. So you're immediately making that timescale even shorter. So is that another reason? I'm going to just, Nat's telling us all, we don't need to worry about the depth of the squad. Fiona, is the quarantine thing another reason to discount it for you?
I think it's less of a concern for me, because they've had this tournament, so they've played recently. It depends. Are we going to say, like, are they having? It probably works out as like 2 weeks, depending on how quickly they get over here. So 2 weeks quarantine and maybe like 2 weeks off. So they're not going to be like 100% like training like everybody else. So it maybe does delay things. I suppose it depends on the fixture releases. Who have we got in our first few games? And what are they going to do about so Arsenal, if they're playing Champions League and then they've got the FA Cup, how all of that interacts. If our first big games are only at the end of September, beginning of October, that quarantine isn't too much of a concern for me. I think the bigger concern would probably be them adjusting to the way of life here. Because if they've got to stay 2 weeks in a flat or 2 weeks in a house, how do they then get used to it? I think not thinking Rachel Daly, she's obviously from Yorkshire, it's not going to be a problem. But if it's an American player, for example, or a Canadian player who hasn't really dealt with the UK, we're a different kind of population. So.
And at a time when the climate is at its most beautiful. Absolutely. And Nat's corrected me. She was just saying she doesn't want Jodie Taylor. So that was Nat's Youth FC. It's a good point that actually you'd be getting players in who were still relatively fresh and actually had been training. And we know that the strength and conditioning coaches would be able to give them some sort of a program. Obviously, they did it for our players when we didn't know if the season was going to be cancelled. But yeah, relevant point, because I think the season still has this massive question mark over it. I know on Friday, we're going to have the first 2 fixtures. That's all. We're just going to get the first 2 rounds of fixtures. Beats last year, I think, when we just had the first one announced. So we will have an idea what our level of competition will be by Friday, certainly in those first 2 weeks. And we will know, obviously, the games we unfortunately won't be able to go to, but we will know what the challenges are. So if last season's anything to go by, I think we can all expect City to be one of those games. Hopefully not. But it's a good point. These players would be fresh. They would be fairly ready to go. We could keep them fit. I know I'm kind of sitting on the fence. I'm letting you two talk about this. And actually, at the beginning of this, I was very much, no. Short term, it's not going to, it's a short term fix for a long term problem. And you're only going to make more problems at the end of the day. But I can also see it depends on who you're bringing in. So Ellen's echoed something you said before, Sue. I think this is about Jodie Taylor, but it could be about so many people. Lots of international experience. Younger players could benefit from learning from her. Good evening, good afternoon, evening. Vincent, thank you for joining us. So there is a recognition that actually these players can do more for us off the pitch as well as on the pitch. I guess the big question is who? And what's Casey's goal ultimately? Because Casey keeps reciting this crawl, walk, run. Is this going to be a matter of running before walking, even crawling at this stage? So that brings me to my next point about the players that need the game time. The players that could be hampered by not having the opportunity to play for 4 or 5 months. Sue, you made the point about maybe it will give them an opportunity to kick on and to push on. And I know from conversation I had with somebody last 12 months ago that there is a recognition from some players that they know they need to put that effort in. And they have done in many ways. So yes, they can use it as a spur. But is there also the possibility that this pushes them back? and actually erodes confidence, but also they need game time. Are there any players for you that you feel, Sue, I'll come to you first, need that game time, and to actually sit on the bench for the best part of 4 months would actually do them harm?
I think with, before addressing that in particular to particular members of the squad, I think just one other thing on if you did bring somebody in short term, that I'm not sure that we do actually have a squad at this minute in time good enough to really push on. We may have a squad if a couple of the people in the development team, particularly somebody like Maria, is able to come into that squad. Because I think we're missing a striker, big time. Now, Maria could be the striker waiting in the wings. Is she ready in September? Who knows? Could she be ready in January with the assistance of someone else coming in the short term? I just think that there are potentially people that do need that start, like you're saying. Right now, are they ready? Are they actually ready to step up and be in the first team? Now, okay, you're saying that if we go with people that started last year, you're probably looking at, Hanson, Ross, Sigsworth, LJ, Galton as 5 players across the front line, maybe. If we bring in a 6th person, that would push somebody else down. But for me, I don't think there's anybody that I can think of that really needs game time, that doesn't get that game time either from the start or off the bench. There might be some people in the development squad who are coming into the first team squad, but for me, you've got to prove yourself. I know, United is all about youth and bringing on whatever, but you can only start if you're good enough. You can only be in the squad if you're good enough. And the club might sort of, do everything that they can to attract those younger players and to develop those younger players. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if they're not good enough, then they're not going to make it in the first team. And I think that although our performances against, what ended up as the top 3 last year, were quite good, and we kicked on in those performances, although, we lost a few of them narrowly. Performances against teams like Brighton and West Ham and, Bristol, we were lacking. And I think we need a striker. And unless we sign somebody on a full-time contract, then I think we need a short-term contract until potentially other people are ready.
Okay, thanks for that. Fiona, you said that you think the squad's good enough for 4th, as things stand. Sue says we need someone if we're going to push on. But who would you identify? Hanson's the name that we keep coming up with. If they didn't get the games between now and January, would struggle, would put them back in their development, who is there for you that you would be concerned about on that long-term basis?
Yes, I think Hanson would probably be one of them. I think, I don't know, it seems like she's played and then she's not. It'd just be nice for her to maybe have a run of 4 or 5 games consistently where she's not hampered by injury or whatever, where she gets a bit of a chance to say, yeah, this is my position, I'm going to own it. Because I think when she's given the chance, she can't demonstrate it. But I think, yes, whether she would only get game time in like the cups, in the Country Cup, for example, or if you have an easy FA Cup game, maybe. And I think some of our new signings, I think they need to get an understanding for how the team play or whatever. So like Honor and Ivana, they both need a decent amount of game time. Whether you start them straight away in September is a different matter we've discussed. But I think until December, they still need a reasonable amount of game time, whether that be against your easier teams, maybe like your Birmingham or your Brighton, which in theory should be easier, although we don't like to make it that way for ourselves.
Nope.
Rather than chucking them straight in the City game. So I suppose if you're going to do it like that, maybe somebody coming in from America, you could say to them, you're going to play our big games, and then we're going to have somebody else playing in our cup games or easier games. But I wonder if somebody from America comes over for game time, they're not going to be happy if half the games they play and half the games they're on the bench.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that balance. Maybe they'll be happy if they don't have to play in their Conti Cup game, midweek and an evening, very cold. They might get away with that one. But yeah, I think
he's not happy with the climate. A cold midweek evening. For me, it's one of the best times to watch football. But we always say about some of the men's players, oh, can they do it on a cold Tuesday night in Stoke? I suppose, can you do it on a cold Wednesday night at Solihull Moors would be maybe the equivalent. But yeah, it's a point that you're making, that they would be expecting to play every time. Fiona, there's a question that I'm going to just. You've seen it, haven't you? Vincent's asking, what do you make of the home shirt?
Oh, it's great. I love it. A lot better than what the prototypes were.
The prototype was what was nicknamed the bus seat.
Yeah.
And I have to ask, would you have still bought it had it looked like that, Fiona?
I might have waited until the away kits are out and decided then which one to choose from. But I just will say, Vincent, do not buy the goalkeeper coat. That one, the goalkeeper top, is horrendous. Only the red one.
Okay, so there you go, Vincent. Fiona says it's great. Just don't buy the keeper's jersey. Okay, I know someone that does like the keeper's jersey, but then like anything that's got a United badge on it. So
can I just add a point to what Fiona was saying there? And I agree with her in the sense of when she was talking about the USA players. I think as well as a lot of this, let's suppose there was a USA player, would boil down to conversations with them and, with Casey as to exactly what their expectations were. Because if you're talking, let's say Rachel Daly's conversation might be, you know what, Casey, I just want to be able to train 5 days a week. Play me now and again. I'm happy with that. But I want to train in a professional environment. I want access to physiotherapy, S&C coaching. I do want to play because I need to keep my eye in. But maybe these players who are looking for a way into the Olympic squad, because that's what it's all about, really. I mean, but let's not, hide behind the fact Rachel Daly wants to make Team GB. What does she do? Does she sit in the United States 6 months, right, going through her own personal training program, hoping that she is going to be there, or does she join a club where she's got access to all of the equipment she needs, good coaching, training facilities, like I said, physiotherapy, medical teams should she tweak a little injury or something? Does she really want to be playing every single week? So it all boils down to a conversation that these players will have with Casey or anybody else to say, this is what I need between now and next June. What can you give me? And if they can give her reasonable training facilities, access to training with international players, which is where I think we're at the downfall there. I mean, she goes to City and she could be training with half the Olympic squad. And so you're there, you're training with those people, you're keeping fit, but you're keeping match sharp, and you get the occasional game. It might not be that she wants to play every week. I think this is you know, it's a big difference, I think, in the sense of, because the Olympics is next summer and the US, you know, I think that's just, it's not like an Igalo loan, you know, it's a completely different thing. The eyes on the prize.
Yeah, I think the Olympics is obviously the motivation for a lot of these players, not just to get into their national squads, but also to still be fit and to be playing and to be ready for them. The Igalo was very much the club needed that.
Yeah.
This feels very much the player. The player needs, wants. It's not necessarily the club saying, come to us. It's the players saying, come and get me, please.
Yeah, in which case they might be happy not to play.
Right. But that then creates a different dynamic within a squad, doesn't it? When you've got a player who comes in and says, potentially, right, I'm going to come in and train with you. You're going to pay me my salary, but I don't want to play midweek away games. I don't mind playing the odd Sunday, preferably at home, and I don't really want to. You can imagine then that all of the goodwill, I'm thinking if I was a player who's lost my place to that player, and they're suddenly picking and choosing which games they play, and I've got to go and play the difficult matches, supposedly, and the away grounds that aren't pretty, I might not think this is a heck of an opportunity for me to learn from somebody. I might actually be thinking, how dare you come in and do this? How dare you take my place for half of these games when it might be easier for my family to come and watch me at Lee or grounds that are closer to my home, just because you're not in the mood for it. So
that's man management, isn't it? That's all about the man management.
And that's what brings me to the point about, I want one word answer from you both. We'll expand on it later if need be. Do you believe, Fiona, I'll come to you first, I'm sticking you on the spot. Do you believe Casey would ever be interested in a short-term loan for a player until December?
No.
Sue?
Yes.
Okay. Because for me, I keep having this crawl, walk, run in my head. And Casey talks constantly about developing. And she talks about the 5-year project and she wants to change things. I don't think she's, for me personally, I don't think she's one for a quick fix. John is agreeing with you and me, Fiona. He's saying no. But there's also that question for me of, if they can enhance things, are we daft to refuse them? But there's so much that comes with it. When I was reading some of the tweets on Sunday, what got me was this, there were a lot of people saying, let's just bring them in, whoever it is, bring them in. And for me, I thought, whoa, we've got to put the brakes on here. We should only be bringing in, if we're bringing anybody in, somebody who is good enough, somebody who improves us, and somebody who actually will benefit us. Let's not just bring people in for the sake of bringing people in. I personally would rather we brought somebody in permanently. Now, I still think there might need to be additions because I don't think the squad's where it should be, but that's another conversation. And I think also COVID's messed the world up. And in many ways, we're having this conversation because of COVID. Because otherwise, I think the transfers would have been sorted and we wouldn't be talking about these players coming over from America needing these short-term deals. So there's almost a point for me of saying, do you know what, this season, let's just throw our hands up in the air. Let's just see what falls down and go with it and pick up the pieces again another time. Because there's still so much that's up in the air. But I keep coming back to Kirsty Hansen and to a point, Ella Toon. Because one of the great things we talk about on the back row or wherever we are is to say, Tooney has these games, she'll score 4, 5 goals sometimes, occasionally, and then she's not in the next game. And if she's even further down the pecking order, she's not getting those games. And the development squad aren't being given the opportunity to come up. So it really comes down to who we'd be bringing in. So one name, okay? I'll let you have a think about this one. And if anybody on the comments wants to throw a name in as well. One name that you would absolutely, if you had Casey's ear for 5 seconds, you would say that's the player on a short-term deal coming from the States or whoever might need game time. Okay, Jodie Taylor's gone, everybody. So I'm quite sure she'd have been top of some people's geriatric list. But who would you say to Casey, get them in? Okay, so if anybody wants, Nat's just said Daly will do all that, and she still said, yeah, I think Nat's basically saying, Casey, is that Casey? Casey wouldn't go for it. Okay, so any ideas who you would insist, regardless of stopping development of players, regardless of picking and choosing their matches, who would be a nail on for you? You would say to Casey, that's the person. Sue, any thoughts?
Maybe Daly, absolutely Daly. And when I said yes, the thing is, I think I don't want to give the impression that I'm just going to say yes and let's just go short term. What I'm saying is it shouldn't be a no. I don't think there should ever be a situation in football, in life, in anything that you would categorically rule out just because you say, I am never open to that idea. I think anybody who says that they are not open to anything is short-sighted and narrow-minded. I don't think you should ever have an attitude of, I'm not going to do that ever. That is completely wrong. And the reason why I said yes was because I would hope that Casey would not have that attitude of closing the door just because. Nobody should ever do that. You should always be willing to leave the door open under the right circumstances. And I would hope that she would say yes if it was the right player on the right terms for the right amount of time. Who is to say even that there has to be a massive payment to the player under these circumstances? Who's doing who the favour here? This comes down to the player. What if a player said, I'll come and they want very little in payment? You know, I mean, I don't think that you can just say Casey would say no, door shut. And in fact, if she did, like I said, I'd be well disappointed in that because I don't think that should ever happen. You know, and in some respects, maybe the whole COVID thing, you know, is actually should change people's attitudes towards this and think, you know what, this is extreme circumstances. This is a very different scenario. We can't sign maybe who we want to on a long-term basis because of all of the situation that's happening, you know, so I can't get the person that I want because of this whole situation. I need to be a little bit more flexible. As says, and yeah, she is pretty stubborn, I guess. But if she is going to be that stubborn to the detriment of the club, then she's not the right person for the job.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nat, if you think Casey's the most stubborn person you've ever met, I need to introduce you to some people I know. But Sue, what you're saying there is, again, what we said earlier on in terms of this is now about the club being in charge. This is about the club saying, the players saying, please come and get me. And the club saying, well, what can you do for us? Rather than say when United went after Igalo, it was, we need you. Please come to us. This is a very different deal. And maybe in that respect, there is an opportunity for the clubs to actually reassess how they look at this and not have it as a categorical, no, not going to touch this. Because it almost feels like a yes, but, or a no, but. And here's one for you. If Casey signs Rachel Daly, Nat's going to build a statue. I have no idea what it's going to be of. And I'm slightly scared to ask that question. But I don't know what she'll be building. Imagine, yeah, this is the point we made, Matt, about whoever, if we were to bring somebody over, the money men would be saying, yes, please, because the shirt sales, there'd be people that would turn up who watch her who might not be United fans. So, yeah, I think that there is. I'm coming round to it more and more. Sue, you're convincing me. But
How long we got
here's one for you.
left?
Casey Stoney looks a bit like Guru Wrighton, who's just signed an extension with Chelsea today. And I know Corin and Ellen speak very highly of her, and yeah, we'll just leave that one there. But there's a random one. Nat, right, I know what the statue's of.
It's going to be like one of those Ronaldo statues, isn't it? That looks nothing like him.
Do you remember the one in the airport? The one in the airport where his eyes were going in different directions and it looked nothing like him. And you actually wondered whether the guy who did it had ever actually seen a picture or Ronaldo in the flesh. Nat, if you can draw up some images for us, we'd love to see those. Yeah, can't wait for that one. Right, Stu's convincing me here, Fiona, with a slight condition. Okay, so it's not let's not bring somebody in, it's maybe if. And it feels like it's not that categorical yes or no. There are buts and ifs and maybes. And maybe that's also part of the club now being more in need of or being more in charge of the deal. Whereas we can say, yeah, if you want to come to us, that's great. We'll train, we'll let you train with us. We'll give you somewhere to stay, blah, blah, blah. But we need this and we need that from you. We could almost have a player say to us, look, I'll do a pay-as-you-play deal. That's happened in the past. It depends how desperate people are. But it's also the question of would they come to us or would they want to go to, say, a Reading or a Spurs where perhaps they get more games, there's less competition, I think. But in the back of my head, I'm still thinking, come January, when that player's ridden off into the sunset, where's Tooney, Hansen, the Debs that we were hoping to develop through? I'm still yet to be convinced. And I think it's one of those that only when the actual names are announced in terms of we may be interested, because this may never happen, will I suddenly actually have an idea one way or the other. Okay, so I'm openly admitting I am getting splinters in my backside from sitting on the fence on this one because I can't go either way with it. Fiona, I kind of started off more where you are in terms of not sure this is the right deal to make. Can you see a benefit, though, if it's the right player?
If it's the right player and the right reason, then yeah. We're signing them, yeah, we need more players in our squad. Well, we're going to still have that issue then in January, unless we've got that. I know there's people at like college or university in America, they often finish around January time and join. I think they did that. Didn't the Everton keeper do that? So she joined in like January after leaving their university. So in theory, we could sign somebody like that coming through. I think Casey would want the pre-contract agreement all sorted out before we went and got a player from the NWSL for 6 months or for 5 months or however long it is. I think there's if it was a striker, I can see the benefit of bringing across. We need goals, but then you also look at what Samco has done. Has she, set the WSL alight? But that's maybe a bit of a different situation at Chelsea. They've got so many forwards. It's not too much of a problem. Whereas we need guaranteed goals, really. Yeah, I think there's positives and negatives. For me, I don't think Rachel Daly would come. Because I know she does a lot of coaching in the US, so she can get paid through that kind of get a training involved. If you look at a lot of the NWSL players are probably going to stay in America, and some of them will then train where she trains. So I think that would be less of a problem. And I think Rachel Daly, if she came for 6 months, I think she wouldn't want to come back though. I think because she likes the US lifestyle. And that kind of thing. It's like how Jodie Taylor says she's preferred the US and the Australian lifestyle rather than the WSL lifestyle. So I think there's I can see it happening for other players rather than Rachel Daly. I don't see it happening for Rachel Daly at the moment.
On a day like today, I think I would prefer the climate at Houston myself as well. So I think we can all understand. Certainly when Jodie Taylor, I went, well, Seattle's not exactly, Seattle's more Mancunian than anything. But and I'll put it up before, Torrens agreeing with you, Fiona. She's leaning towards a no, unless it's a striker. And if it's a striker, I think we are all off to the races at that point, and we're all saying, bring it on, let's get somebody. Lotta saying that she was hoping Gura Reiten would have come to United. I think we all were. And certainly a couple of her countrywomen who I know were hoping to come over back in March were hoping that we'd have had Gura Reiten. So, yeah, maybe that's Nat saying that Bailey could be the striker.
Absolutely. That's where, if she came, that's absolutely where she'd play, across the front line.
Yes. Self-filled that. No, sorry, too late. But she could be Sue.
I just saw that. Listen, I'm not even saying that, you know, she'll come. You said to me, if there was one player that I would take, that would be her.
And she did, in a way, she triggered this by saying she would be open to a move to the WSL. This isn't just one of, I mean, let's just imagine somebody sat there on Twitter and go, "Oh, I'm going to start a campaign for somebody." It's not one of those now. It's genuine that she has said, "I would be open to a move to the WSL," and looking at her options. And hey, we're not that far from Leeds, unfortunately. And you know, she's wanting to come and see family. We've got a few Yorkies already in the team, so we could make her feel very much at home. But it's whether we'd be the right fit for her. It feels like, in a way, Nat siding with Sue, Torrens siding with Fiona. This could, we could end up with a proper, 11 aside here.
Well, Torren also has strong feelings about Kit, so, you know, we've already got that bond, so that's what it is.
I'm just going to cough myself away here, so you guys might have to talk for a moment. No, carry on. Fiona, say what you need to say.
No, I think there are definitely some NWSL players that would really add to our squad. For a 4 or 5 month period, it's like when Carly Lloyd went to Manchester City, she brought that experience and that knowledge to their squad and passed that on in training.
Yeah.
So there's that. When you're looking at signing USA national team players, it gets very difficult. So not jealous of the person who has to deal with all of that contract stuff.
Well, there's also the license issue. We don't, as far as we're aware, we don't have that license yet. So we can talk about Rachel Daly because she's, yes, coming from the American League, but not American, if I understand it correctly. We can bring players in from foreign leagues, but we can't buy players of certain nationalities. John's not budging. Still no. So there are potential players out there that could be coming to the WSL, and actually maybe it's not even a post-COVID world. I wish it was. We're in a during COVID world. This could, and I know I said it before, throw your hands up this season, see what falls, because we could end up with a lot of these short-term deals. We've also got to consider injuries. If we lose any players, I know Casey's talked about having depth. I still don't feel there's depth in the squad.
Me neither.
Sue, where do you feel that? Well, is there one particular area? We talk about a striker, so it's one of our constant things. Is that the main area for you that we need to strengthen in? Or are there others?
No, I think it's across the front line more so. I mean, you know, let's make a comparison right now with say, City. Yeah? If you look at City, on the assumption that they do get Bronze and Greenwood, probably got two players for every position in the team. And those two players are actually, in a lot of instances, internationals. They've got Greenwood and Stokes, you know, at left back. They're going to have, you know, like Hemp and Kelly They're going to have. So we might be able to say we've got 23 players or whatever it be, but we haven't got the quality in that backup position. So we might have the numbers, but have we got the quality?
Do you think we've got the numbers though? I'm not
No, I
convinced.
don't think we've got the numbers, but even if we bring in a couple of people from the depths, we might have the numbers. We might be able to name 23 players in the first team squad, but even if we can have those numbers, we haven't got the quality, you know, that the others have. And yeah, we've probably got enough to get fourth because we're better than Spurs and Reading and Everton, but is fourth 10, 15 points behind third, you know, going to be an improvement on this year? Because all I can see at the minute is those top three getting stronger. And like I said, I think City at this minute in time probably have two really good players for every single position. And I don't think we do. If we have the numbers, we could have cover, but we don't have quality in that cover. And I know that, you know, the whole ethos is let's bring through the youth. This is Manchester United. We want to develop players. Well, that's all well and good, but do we actually want to win something? Because we have got, if you like, local players. This is a team that is just now 2 years old, right? You can't develop players in the first year or the second year. If we were 8 years down the line and we were a 10-year-old club and we were still buying talent as opposed to developing it, then I would be worried. But in our, having just been 2 years in, do we have quality in that development squad to bring through into the first team to compete with Arsenal, City and Chelsea? And I think the answer is no. So we've got to, I think, be prepared to buy at this minute in time, and in 3, 4, 5 years' time, then be able to develop, because we just don't have that quality at the minute in the depth of squad.
And Nat's saying exactly what I was saying before. Casey wanting 2 quality players in every position, and that provides competition. That keeps people on their toes. And I think we recognised as fans that the team was very predictable. The lineup was very predictable, and it was very samey, and it didn't feel challenging at times. But Fiona, I know you watched the pod that Nat and I did with Rich Laverty, and he was saying that, Sue, you mentioned about us being 2 years old. I don't count us as 2 years old. I count us as 18 months because we lost so much last season. And actually, we've probably lost a huge chunk of this season because I think our signings could have been very different. And I also think maybe our incoming, in terms of our outgoings, could have been slightly different. The incomings definitely would have been. So, I think we're 18 months. Probably we're going to lose a year. And that's kind of where I see the team and their development. But Fiona, Rich was saying much along the lines of, for us to get to that Champions League level, we almost need to have Champions League football to attract those players. And it's a bit of a catch-22 because you want to bring them in, but you can't bring them in without offering them that Champions League. So it's a chicken and an egg situation. And some of the devs aren't quite there yet. Some of them are very good. Some of them are probably going to be in the first team squad this season coming, and they'll deserve those places. But Fiona, this chicken and egg thing about Champions League, are we going to attract the players first, or are we going to get there first?
Yeah, so there's difficulties. The only other real solution is if you develop the Champions League quality player. I suppose if you look at like Leah Galton, brought her in when she fallen out of loving football. She was going to Championship, but she knew she was going to get regular game time. That kind of thing. I don't know. Would Man City or Chelsea or Arsenal been a good fit for it? Don't know. But you can see her becoming our star player when we get to Champions League. Yeah, it is a difficult one. there's a few players where I think if they could see, I don't know, gaining something like they would be the team captain and all that leadership responsibility was on them, then they could maybe like drop out of Champions League for a year as long as the idea is that we'd push on. It's like how Alex Greenwood, she came to United in the Championship, took a chance with the expectation of we'll get into the WSL. Obviously, it's a bit more competitive to get a Champions League spot than it was for us to get promoted. But I think you might see that. I think like Lucy Bronze, obviously not going to happen now, but you could have seen her going somewhere where she was now going to be the leader of the team, that kind of thing, with the risk of not being in the league. But if somebody with Champions League was going to offer you that as well, then you can obviously bite the hand off. Yeah, it's going to be a difficult one for Casey. She's going to have to get the best out of the players we've got, and then it'll be busy. But if we went and got somebody from the NWSL for 6 months, we did amazingly with them. I don't know, they were scoring goals for fun, that kind of thing. And we do get third, and we get Champions League. Well, they're not around anymore, so they won't be there to help, and that would rely on Casey having a good transfer window, getting in that star quality, because there's nothing worse. It would be great to get Champions League, but if we then play absolutely rubbish, get knocked out to, I don't know, some team we've never heard of before, that would be probably even worse. I think it is that balance.
Yeah,
Can
and
I just make
go on, Sue.
a couple of points there? In the sense of the Champions League scenario, let's suppose you can say, if you compare it to the men, I know what you're saying about, do we get the players to get us in the Champions League so they won't come until we're in the Champions League? It's a bit of a catch-22. But if you look at the men, for example, I think I'm right in saying that Pogba came to us when we didn't have Champions League football. Kante had won the league with Leicester and was going to have Champions League, but he went to Chelsea, where there was no Champions League. But the difference for that was money. It was the amount, precisely. Pogba was getting paid regardless if we were in the Champions League. Kante got the contract of Chelsea. He walked away from Leicester. To the men, it means nothing. It means nothing because it's the money. Whereas I do think with the women, it's more important. That is what they want to do. And I don't think you're going to get a player, such as in the Pogba scenario or the Kante scenario, when you're not in Champions League, with them thinking, I'll go there and get Champions League next year and then maybe win it the year after, because they're not going to be earning that kind of coinage for 2 years. It's got to be there. They've got to know they can go. They've got to know when they go that they're going to be in the Champions League. And I think the scenario with Bronze, for example, she's won everything in England with Liverpool and then with City. She was missing the Champions League. She went to Lyon and got it. For me, her only reason, if she comes back to England, as we're all supposed to believe, it's City, is because she'll get the captaincy at City. And then she'll get the captaincy at England. And that is now the thing she wants. If she is the captain at the 2023 World Cup or the 2022 now Euros, she'll come back to City in England for that. She doesn't need to come back to Champions League football.
But if we offered her that and City offered her that and City go, but we've also got Champions League and United haven't got that, then the Champions League will sway you that way. But yeah, if we offered her something like the captaincy and City didn't offer that, but said we've got Champions League, then I think she might come to us then because she'll get that England captaincy, and I think that's what she wants.
I agree, but I think there's two other things. There is money and there's Kira Walsh. You throw those two things into the mix, and she's going to go to City.
Don't mention her name here.
I'm just being honest here.
She's our favourite City player, Deborah. Do not get us wrong, because she likes to get sent off against us. We love it.
So I think the Champions League is more important for women than it is for men because the money sways the men.
The prestige for the women will always mean more because the money isn't there to offset it. I remember when the men were trying to do the deal for Angel Di Maria, and I think, you know, in hindsight, we wish that hadn't have happened. But I remember reading on social media that Ed was working his back, as it said, Ed Woodward's doing a heck of a job to convince Di Maria to come to United without European football.
Yeah.
That's the stage we were at. Because although it was a draw and although it was something he wanted, actually money spoke a hell of a lot more. And we're not at that point yet with the women's game. We are, however, at that point of an hour, and I could carry this on, but I'm very aware that I did say we'd have an hour, then everyone would have a chance to go and catch the breath, grab something to eat, drink, whatever, before the men play at 8 o'clock. Both of you, thank you very much. I know I always enjoy sitting down to a podcast with a few pointers of where I want things, what we're going to discuss, and then knowing we're going to take different routes. So we've ended up with Lucy Bronze and the captaincy, which I never expected. But thank you, I really appreciate it.
If only.
Well, hey, I'd sign up on the short-term contract. No. Fiona, just very, very quickly, I have to ask you because I feel like I've got a vested interest in this. As well as the home shirt, are you looking to the away shirt?
I might keep my eye open for it. You know, now I've got the one. I don't feel the need to necessarily buy it. Depends what the options are. No zebra kit.
No zebra. I'm just talking about the grey, greeny, blacky away kits that I've taught. Okay,
I've got the training. I've got the training kit. It's very similar, you see.
I might ask you to have a chat with somebody I know then, who seems to think that if there's a badge on it, it needs to be bought. Sue, go on. A last comment going to be on one of these.
Just one thing. Now I've actually seen the home kit. I think I'm sold. But I'm gonna be Staniforth all the way. I'm having Staniforth on the back.
You'll have to fight Jake.
Yes, Jake's not with us tonight, so I don't know what. I think he must be working, but Jake will be your competition. Just a couple of last comments. So Nat's like nailing her colours to the mast. She's saying, forget the birthdays. There we go. And I think let's end on a positive note. With the right signings, we're going to get Champions League in 2022. And
is that this season coming up? No, that's not this season coming up, is it?
Season after.
No,
that's next season.
Oh, listen. If we're not Champions League 2022, then something's going wrong.
But I think more importantly, let's hope that Torrin and Ellen can actually visit by then. Please. Right, Nat's sorted. She's getting a shirt sorted. Don't know the squad number. Not even signing her. Nat Daly on the back. I might get, I don't know, Morgan on the back. Who else might I get on the back? Pick a player. Anybody. I'm going to go and just go to the Megastore tomorrow, Fiona. I'm going to go and get a name on the back and just ask them. Just make up a number while I'm at it. Thank you both for joining me this evening. And thank you to everybody who's been watching. Next week, we'll probably be back to our normal 7 o'clock. And more than likely, I have no idea who's going to be on it, as usual. More than likely, we will be talking about the first 2 fixtures, which are due to be announced on Friday. So we'll be talking about the games that we should have been going to and maybe how we'll be starting the season. Obviously, last season we had City and Arsenal straight away. Always going to be a tough one. Maybe it'll be slightly more gentle this time round, but it might give us an idea about squads, teams, that sort of thing. But yeah, hopefully that's for next week. Fiona and Sue, take care of yourselves. Thank you for joining me this evening. Thank you to everybody else. Take care, and we'll see you again soon.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.